It was a frigid evening when my life turned into a nightmare. The wind howled through the barren trees, shaking their skeletal branches against the windows. I had just tucked my 6-year-old daughter, Ellie, into bed, her soft snores filling the room as I tiptoed out. The world outside was nothing but darkness. Thick clouds blotted out the moon, leaving the night devoid of any light. That's when I heard the noise, a scraping sound, like nails being dragged along stone, echoing through the silence. My gut churned as I rushed to the front door, yanking it open, half expecting to see a stray animal or a branch scratching against the side of the house. But there was nothing. Only the dense, impenetrable blackness stretched out before me. I stepped outside, scanning the yard, and that's when I noticed it, the faintest outline of a figure standing at the edge of the woods. I squinted, my heart thudding in my chest. It was tall, its limbs unnaturally long, head tilted at an odd angle. It wasn't moving, just standing there, watching. I felt the cold bite deeper into my skin, but I couldn't move. My eyes stayed locked on the figure. Then, before I could blink, it moved. In the blink of an eye, the shadowy figure darted toward the house, faster than anything human. I slammed the door shut, locking it, heart pounding in my ears. The scraping returned, louder this time, like something clawing at the walls, the roof, the windows. I rushed upstairs, straight to Ellie's room. She was still fast asleep, curled up under her blankets, blissfully unaware of the terror lurking outside. As I stood there, trying to calm my racing heart, the window behind me shattered. I whipped around, but it was too late. The creature was already inside. It wasn't human. Its skin was rotting, sloughing off in pieces, revealing gray flesh and blackened bones beneath. Its eyes were hollow, sunken pits, and its mouth was twisted into a grotesque grin. A zombie, but not like the slow, mindless ones from movies. This thing moved with unnatural speed, its gaze locked on Ellie. I screamed, lunging for her, but the zombie was faster. It snatched her up in its bony arms and leaped out the window, disappearing into the night before I could even reach the bed. My daughter was gone. My world collapsed in that instant. Panic surged through me, and I bolted outside, screaming her name into the void. But there was no answer, only the eerie rustling of the trees and the faint, mocking echoes of my voice. I ran to the edge of the woods where the figure had stood, my breath coming in ragged gasps. There, in the dirt, were footprints, Ellie's tiny shoe prints next to the larger, inhuman tracks. They led into the forest, swallowed by the shadows. Without a second thought, I plunged into the woods, the darkness closing in around me. The forest was a labyrinth of twisted trees and gnarled roots, each step more treacherous than the last. My heart raced, adrenaline pumping through my veins as I followed the tracks deeper into the woods. Every few minutes, I would call out Ellie's name, hoping for a response, but there was only silence. The night seemed to stretch on forever, the cold gnawing at my bones as the fear tightened its grip on me. I kept my flashlight trained on the ground, following the trail of footprints. It wasn't long before I noticed something strange. There were more tracks now, too many to count. Dozens of them, all twisted and deformed, crisscrossing each other as if a whole horde of creatures had passed through here. My stomach churned. I wasn't just chasing after one zombie. I was walking straight into their den. The realization made my skin crawl, but there was no turning back. Ellie needed me, and I would walk through hell itself to get her back. I gripped the flashlight tighter, my knuckles white as I pressed forward. The trees seemed to close in around me, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The wind howled through the canopy, carrying with it a strange, faint sound, whispers, almost like chanting. Low, guttural voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I quickened my pace, ignoring the growing dread in my chest. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. It was as if the forest itself was alive, breathing, speaking. But what was it saying? Then I saw it. A faint, flickering light in the distance. Hope surged in my chest as I hurried toward it, my feet slipping on the uneven ground. As I drew closer, the light grew brighter, and I could make out the outline of a structure hidden deep within the forest. It was an old, decrepit church, its walls crumbling and overgrown with ivy. The light was coming from inside, a sickly, green glow that seeped through the cracks in the walls. I hesitated at the edge of the clearing, my breath catching in my throat. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening. They seemed to be coming from inside the church. I knew Ellie was in there. I could feel it, but every instinct in my body was screaming at me to turn back, to run as far away from this place as possible. But I couldn't. I had to save her. I crept toward the church, my heart hammering in my chest. The door was slightly ajar, and as I pushed it open, a wave of cold air washed over me. The interior was dark and damp, the walls lined with strange, indecipherable symbols. At the far end of the room, there was an altar, and standing before it, bathed in the sickly green light, was the zombie. It was holding Ellie. My heart stopped. She was unconscious, her small body limp in the creature's arms. I opened my mouth to scream, to demand that it let her go, but no sound came out. My legs felt like lead as I stepped forward, my hand trembling as I reached for the flashlight clipped to my belt. The zombie's head snapped toward me, its hollow eyes glowing with an unnatural light. In that moment, I knew I was too late. The chanting grew louder, the symbols on the walls glowing with the same sickly green hue. The air around me crackled with energy, and the ground began to tremble. The zombie let out a guttural growl, its mouth twisting into a hideous grin as it tightened its grip on Ellie. "Ellie!" I screamed, my voice finally breaking free. I lunged toward them, but the air itself seemed to thicken, pushing me back. And then, just as quickly as it had started, everything stopped. The chanting ceased, the glow faded, and the zombie was gone, along with Ellie. The forest closed in around me as I stumbled back from the church, my mind spinning with disbelief. I had lost her, again. I don't remember much after that. My world had collapsed into a black hole of despair, swallowing all sense of time and place. I wandered the forest for hours, maybe days, screaming Ellie's name into the void. My voice grew hoarse, my legs gave way, but I couldn't stop. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, pale, lifeless, slipping further away. The sun rose and set, the world moved on, but I was stuck in that moment, reliving the horror over and over. I don't know when I returned to the house. It must have been instinct, dragging me back to the one place that still held a trace of her. But when I stumbled through the front door, I was no longer the same man who had left. I was hollow, broken, and hopeless. I sat in her room for hours, staring at the empty bed, the stuffed animals she had so lovingly arranged just a day before. Everything was exactly the same except for her. She was gone, and I was powerless to do anything about it. The police were called eventually. I don't know who did it. Maybe a neighbor who noticed I hadn't come out for days. They took my statement, though I'm not sure what I told them. I could barely make sense of it myself. A zombie had taken my daughter? The words felt insane, but it was the truth. They didn't believe me, of course. How could they? They searched the woods, scoured the town, but there was no trace of Ellie. Weeks passed, then months. The world moved on, but I couldn't. Every night, I sat by the window, staring into the forest, hoping, praying, that she would come back. But she never did. It's been a year now. A year since that thing took her. A year since I lost everything. I've tried to move on, to convince myself that she's gone, that there's no hope left. But every night, just as the sun dips below the horizon, I hear it, that same scraping sound. The same nails on stone that I heard the night she was taken. It's always faint, distant, like something moving just beyond the edge of the forest. I've tried ignoring it, telling myself it's just the wind or some animal. But deep down, I know the truth. It's the same thing that took Ellie, and it's waiting. Tonight, it's louder than usual. Closer. I sit by the window, my hands trembling, a flashlight clenched in my fist. The beam cuts through the darkness, landing on the tree line where the shadows twist and writhe. I've been here before. I know how this ends. But something's different this time. The air feels charged, heavy with anticipation. Then I see it, a figure emerging from the woods. My heart stops. It's Ellie. She's standing at the edge of the forest, her pale face illuminated by the beam of my flashlight. For a moment, I'm frozen, disbelief coursing through me. I drop the light and bolt out the door, my feet barely touching the ground as I race toward her. Ellie! I scream, my voice cracking with emotion. Ellie, I'm here. But as I get closer, my steps falter. There's something wrong. Her face is blank, expressionless, and her eyes are empty, lifeless. My heart sinks as I realize what's happened. She's not my Ellie anymore. The same thing that took her has brought her back, but it's twisted her into something else. Her small body twitches, jerks, as if controlled by invisible strings. And behind her, lurking in the shadows, I see it, the creature, the zombie. Its hollow eyes lock onto mine, and I know, deep in my soul, that this is the end. I reach out to her, tears streaming down my face, but she doesn't move. She just stands there, staring through me, waiting. The thing behind her steps forward, its grotesque grin widening as it watches me break. I fall to my knees, the weight of my failure crashing down on me. I've lost her. I've lost everything. There's nothing left. The creature leans closer, its foul breath washing over me, and whispers something I'll never forget. She's ours now. I close my eyes, unable to bear the sight of what my daughter has become. The last thing I hear before the darkness consumes me is her soft, lifeless voice, echoing through the night. Daddy! I don't remember blacking out. I don't even remember returning to the house. But I must have. The cold light of dawn filters through the windows as I sit at the kitchen table, clutching a half-empty bottle of whiskey. My mind reels, playing the nightmare of last night over and over again like a twisted loop I can't escape. Ellie had come back. But not really. I can't shake the memory of her standing there, just beyond my reach, empty, hollow, a puppet on strings. The zombie was controlling her, taunting me, showing me just how powerless I really was. I had lost her once, but now it's worse. She's alive, but not the way she was. She's trapped in a living hell, and I can't let that happen. I have to get her back. I stand up, the room spinning slightly as the alcohol courses through my system. There's no more time for sitting around, no more waiting for her to return. I grab a flashlight, my hunting knife, and an old shotgun from the closet. My hands shake as I load the weapon, but my resolve hardens. I know what I have to do. I'm gonna hunt that thing down, and I'm gonna save my daughter, no matter what it takes. The woods are even darker during the day. The towering trees blot out the sun, casting long shadows that seem to move and shift on their own. I follow the same path I took the night she was stolen from me, the twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Every step is weighed down with dread, but I push forward, fueled by a desperation that burns hotter than my fear. As I venture deeper into the forest, the air grows colder, unnaturally so. My breath comes out in short, visible puffs. The further I go, the more I notice something strange. The woods are dead silent. No birds, no rustling leaves, nothing. It's as if the forest itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I've been walking for what feels like hours when I hear it. The faint sound of footsteps, shuffling through the underbrush. My heart leaps into my throat as I stop and listen. It's not just one pair of footsteps. It's many. Dozens, maybe more, all moving toward me from different directions. I grip the shotgun tighter, the weight of it reassuring in my hands. I'm not alone. They're coming for me. And then I see them, emerging from the trees like phantoms. Their rotting, disfigured bodies lurching and twisting as they close in. Zombies. Not just one or two, but a whole horde. Their milky eyes fixed on me, their decayed hands reaching out as if to drag me down into the earth with them. My pulse quickens, and I raise the shotgun, firing blindly into the crowd. The blast echoes through the forest, and one of the creatures falls, its skull shattered by the shot. But it barely makes a dent. There are too many of them. They keep coming, relentless, unfeeling. I fire again, taking down another, but they're closing in too fast. I turn and run, my heart hammering in my chest, my legs burning as I crash through the underbrush. Branches whip at my face, thorns tear at my clothes, but I don't stop. I can hear them behind me, the wet, guttural sound of their moans growing louder. Panic grips me as I realize I'm heading deeper into the woods. There's no way out. I'm running straight into their territory. I stumble into a clearing, panting and out of breath. My lungs burn, and my legs feel like they're about to give out. But the zombies are close behind me. I can hear them, their grotesque groaning filling the air. I scan the area, desperate for a way out. And then I see it. At the far end of the clearing, half hidden beneath the twisted roots of an ancient tree, is the entrance to a cave. It's small, barely wide enough for me to squeeze through, but it might be my only chance. Without thinking, I run toward it, dropping to my knees and crawling inside just as the first of the zombies burst into the clearing. I push myself deeper into the cave, the walls closing in around me. The smell is unbearable, damp, moldy, mixed with the stench of decay. But I don't care. I crawl until I'm far enough inside that the zombies can't reach me. I press my back against the cold stone and listen, my heart pounding in my ears. Outside, I can hear them. The horde gathers at the entrance, their rotten hands clawing at the earth, their moans growing louder. They know I'm in here, but they can't reach me. Not yet, anyway. For now, I'm safe. The cave is suffocating, but I force myself to stay calm. I have to think. There's no way I can fight them all. The shotgun only has a few shells left, and even with the knife I'd be overrun in seconds. But I can't stay here forever. I need to find a way to outsmart them. I turn on the flashlight, the weak beam cutting through the darkness. The cave stretches deeper into the earth, the walls narrowing as they descend. I hesitate for a moment, unsure if going deeper is the right choice. But what other option do I have? If I stay here, I'll eventually be found. Taking a deep breath, I move further into the cave, the cold air biting at my skin. The passage twists and turns, the walls slick with moisture. As I descend, a strange sensation creeps over me, an oppressive weight pressing down on my chest. It's not just the cold or the darkness. It feels as if the very air is thick with malevolence, like the cave itself is alive and watching. The further I go, the worse it gets. The flashlight flickers, the batteries already fading, casting eerie shadows that seem to writhe and twist. The walls close in tighter, forcing me to crouch as I move. My breath is shallow, my heart pounding in my ears, but I push on. And then I hear it. A soft, whispering sound, barely audible over the drip of water from the ceiling. At first, I think it's just the wind, but as I listen closer, I realize it's not random. It's words, chanting, low, guttural, and ancient like something out of a nightmare. The whispers grow louder as I round a corner, and the passage suddenly opens up into a vast chamber. My breath catches in my throat. In the center of the chamber stands an altar, ancient and crumbling, covered in strange symbols that glow with a faint green light. And there on the altar is Ellie. She's lying on the stone, her eyes closed, her body still. My heart stops. I rush forward, desperate to reach her. But as I approach, I feel something pulling me back, an invisible force holding me in place. The chanting grows louder, echoing off the walls, and from the shadows, they emerge. The zombies, all of them, surrounding the altar, their hollow eyes glowing with the same sickly green light. But they aren't attacking. They're waiting. And then, from the darkest corner of the chamber, steps the figure I saw that night. The zombie that took Ellie. It's not like the others. It's larger, its body more intact, its eyes burning with intelligence. It grins as it approaches the altar, its bony fingers reaching out to touch Ellie's forehead. No! I scream, lunging forward, but the force holding me in place tightens, locking me in place. The creature turns its gaze toward me, its eyes glowing brighter. You came to take her back. It rasps, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. But she's already gone. She belongs to us now. I shake my head, tears streaming down my face. She's my daughter. You can't have her. The creature chuckles, a low, guttural sound that makes my skin crawl. Your daughter. It leans in closer, its rotten breath washing over me. She was ours the moment she stepped into the woods. The chanting grows louder, the symbols on the walls pulsing with energy. I struggle against the invisible force, but it's no use. I'm trapped, helpless, as the creature lifts Ellie off the altar, cradling her in its arms. Let her go! I scream, my voice cracking with desperation. The creature smiles, its teeth yellow and broken. She will never be yours again. With that, the chamber plunges into darkness, the green light flickering out. The last thing I hear before the world collapses around me is Ellie's soft, lifeless voice. Daddy! I wake up alone, lying in the middle of the woods. The cave is gone. The zombies are gone. But so is Ellie. I sit up, dazed, my head spinning. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the forest floor. It's as if everything I saw was a dream, but I know better. My body aches, my clothes are torn, and the smell of decay still lingers in the air. She's gone. They took her, and there's nothing I can do to get her back. I stumble to my feet, my legs barely able to hold me up. I don't know where to go, what to do. There's no one left to help me. I've lost everything. As I turn to leave, I hear it. The faint sound of footsteps, shuffling through the leaves behind me. I don't even bother turning around. I know who it is. They're always there, waiting, watching, and I know they'll come for me next. But maybe, just maybe, I'll let them.